So not having either gives you the option, the gift, the opportunity to say, what do I do to get it? Or who's going to come home and save it? I was always thinking, like, what do I do to survive?
That's why I love being around you, is there's just like a different work ethic. There's a different mentality.
If you're going to do something, be the best at it, right?
What would be the first step to really help them understand how to become that much better?
So having goals, having vision, you have to use all these things in your toolbox, right? There's a massive problem currently in the residential solar industry. And if we don't correct it, this is going to go bad.
All right, cool. We're live. And this message is brought to you by SAPS, one of the best electrolytes to fulfill your day and have a great day. This is my boy right here, Mr. Robert Lopez. I'm so freaking fired up about this podcast. As you know, here at the Cool Roots Podcast, one of the things we like to do is always add value, and that value is learned from just like experience. It's learned from people's careers compacted into a short little hour about the things that you've done, the things that you learned from, the things that you've found to be the most successful. And just what makes this podcast amazing, just value driven to help you, because a lot of people are in the same spot that we're at, or have been in the same spot, or looking to advance and become that much better. So Robert, tell me a little about yourself. What did I don't even know where to start, because this story is just amazing. So I want you to just tee it off and start and just be the Robert that I know you are, and I'll let you take the floor.
Man, first of all, thank you for having me.
100%.
It's an honor to be, next to you again, and just to be in the presence of people doing like cool things, big things, and just straight out genuine, man.
100%.
Especially today in the world of AI and everything, dude. It's getting harder and harder to find, a genuine path, but also easier if you're really, really doing the work.
I agree.
But man, I am a firm believer that I am just grateful to be in America, to be honest, especially today with everything going on, dude. I still rather be here than anywhere else.
Well, and tell me about that. You say good to be in America.
Yeah.
Where are you from?
So I was born in Paraguay. I was born in Asuncion. And probably most people listening to this will not even know where that is. So,
I don't know where that is.
Right. So, I was like, cool friends say it's south of Mexico. I'm like, way south.
Way south.
Way south. But no, dude, which is funny because I am the most, like, when it comes to like different countries and all that, man, it's all good. I don't care if you don't know it, But anyway, so it's a very small country in the heart of South America. So it's right between Argentina and Brazil, right? It's also a landlocked country. It has no access to the ocean. At least not anymore. It did like 580 something years ago when the country was bigger, right? But that's where I was born, dude. So I have a big, immigration family. Like my dad immigrated here like in the early 60s. Family that are all grown and raised in America, and I have family that are completely distant, never been inside the U.S. In fact, my oldest sister was born here.
Wow.
But that's it, man. That's where I was born. I went to it was close to a boarding school, really.
Yeah.
My dad was not in the picture much, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you want to look at this. I look at it now as a fortunate thing that happened to us. Long story short, man, I can tell you about my first memories of being a child in a third world country where I actually experienced hunger. Man, that might get a little emotional thinking about this stuff now, because I'm married. My wife is probably by far the most important person in my life, and I'll tell you a funny story on how I got to that conclusion. But and now my 3 daughters, and I see who they are and what we do for them, and it's funny, sometimes they come home with a little silly thing, and they're hungry 20 minutes after they ate lunch. I'm pretty sure a lot of parents can relate, right? I'm like, I'm hungry again. And the other day I was just like, I sat down and I made them all look at me, and my wife's just looking, and I said, you don't know what hunger is.
Wow.
And it was a very powerful moment where they got it. They understood, but I don't have to ever let them get to that point of understanding, right? Yeah. So it's just one of those things where I'm like, man, I experienced like 3 days without food in South America, but we had nothing to eat. Like my mom was giving us tea and water, but it ended up being one of the best things, man, because, I can fast now for like 5 days and I'm good. Right. So again, some of your worst curses could be your biggest blessings.
3 days is a walk in
3
the
days
park
is like,
you.
dude,
yeah.
I've done that since I was a kid,
Yeah.
you know? And now in the like, you know, health world, that's like,
Yeah, I just
people are making millions of dollars.
They have these drinks free here, and I offered it to him. He's like 25 calories. I'm on a fast right now. I can't even do it.
Won't do it, man. 3 grams
Well,
of sugar won't do it.
and I know the story. It's just
Yeah.
like it gets better and better. Every time I'm with you, I always learn something new. I always learn. More importantly, there's always like a saying you see, and that's why I love being around you. Is there's just like a different work ethic. There's a different mentality for those like myself who were born here. I just call it like I live in a generation of nothing but lazy. I mean, they want anything and everything for nothing. It's the microwave society. Oh, I can't have it tomorrow. Then I'm not going to work today. It's crazy. But like, what do you think? And I wrote this question on, what is the biggest difference between growing up, you think personally in South America versus growing up in the US when it comes to, you know, overall opportunity mixed with work ethic?
That's a very good question, right? And it's almost like, you know, you're not entitled, you're not owed anything, you know. And again, man, I see like the way that I grew up and the things that happened to us were the biggest blessings now, right? In retrospect, I was talking to my brother not too long ago, and I simply told him, I said, hey man, the reason why I know how to love my wife and hold her hand is because I never saw my dad do it.
Wow.
And there's people that would use that excuse as to meaning like to like repeat the cycle. And I'm just like, dude, I remember envisioning as a child driving a car and holding my spouse's hand. I would visualize that as 5 years old.
Wow.
By the way, like Santa Claus is not a thing where I grew up. Right.
Right.
So I never had that experience, but I just remember vividly, I was about 4 or 5 years old, which was one of my most vivid memories of my father coming home. Unfortunately, you know, drunk like 3 a.m. in a white diesel Mercedes. And he was coming home from Chile, and it was not good, man. Don't have to get too much into it, but it was borderline. It was really bad. You know, he almost tried to kill my mom with a knife, you know.
Wow.
And I remember I have an older brother, and I feel like this is everything that shaped my existence and my value and my worth today is that at 4 years old, I remember looking at my brother, and my brother was even more scared than I was. Maybe I was naive, but I was like, dude, I need to step in, right? So I remember stepping up to my father and putting my hands up saying, you're not touching my mom. You know, you're not touching my sisters. Since that day, the whole facade of wanting something faded away, dude. And I go, my world is not going to be like this, but my world comes from making, creating, and doing something to get, which is crazy because like the person who probably I love the most, like your father, Ryan.
Right.
I loved him when he wasn't home, but I fear him when he came home.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the love of a child, that despite of what's going on, you love the person who's hurting you the most. But at the same time, I remember, I just remember saying, this is not real. This cannot be our reality, because I could compare it to other people, right? Either at school or, you know, my buddies hanging around. I was like, wait a minute, their life is different. They have their dad showing up to recitals and all this stuff, which, by the way, I've always been the kid who participated to do it, because I just wished maybe my dad will show up one day.
Yeah.
Right. So I did all the plays, all the recitals. I learned, I was always first student, but I never got to see my dad come home and like show up to school saying like, damn, I'm proud of that, you know?
Yeah.
He's 81 today, man. And now finally we have a beautiful relationship, you know? Gets to be a grandfather. You know, my experience with him today is pure. It's beautiful. We talk like once a week, but finally now, after so long, man, he's like, man, I'm proud of you. I love you. He said it over text or over the phone, never in person.
Yeah.
But I always like, I love it, man.
And that's incredible. And it's cool too, because that shapes you, how you are as a father today, how you're as a leader, and how you show up as like a sales professional. And, you know, knowing you've been through that and it shaped who you are today, there's also a lot of other things being from South America. I mean, I know one of the things you even told me, which I have 2 questions. I want to hear, number one, the story about quail eggs, which is always a fun story. Then number 2 is like, you know, do you think the quail eggs, your upbringing of South America, has really given you an advantage in overall sales today?
For sure. Because you are really worthless there, right? Unless you bring value.
Yeah.
So like that was super easy for me to understand. I said, we have no value right now as a person who's just standing up or sitting down. Right? You have to do something in order to get. So I realized that I'm like 3-4 years old. And that was pretty simple for me. I was like, I need to amplify this in every single type of scenario, whether it's friendships, relationships. I always jokingly around say it, but it's true. Like my brother, if he's watching, he could tell you this. Like I always stole his girlfriends because he would not make a move, right? Like I could see that, somebody was interested in that and he would not make a move. I'm like, bro, I'm about to.
Well,
Right?
that's not selling. That's closing.
Right,
So,
exactly. Well, exactly.
yeah, big time closer.
I was a closer since the moment I saw my dad come home and say, "Hey, I'm gonna put my hands on your mother," and I said, "You're not going to." Right. So I'll tell you about the quail eggs. So not having either gives you the option, the gift, the opportunity to say, what do I do to get it? Or who's going to come home and save me? Right.
Yeah.
You only have two options, really. There's nothing in between. So that extreme ownership, like Jocko says, right? I had it since I was a child, man. And I guess it's my biggest blessing because the father I am today, the husband I am today, the brother I've always was shaped by my entire childhood since day one. By the way, my siblings can tell you this more than anything. I was born angry. My youth pictures, good luck finding a smile there, right? So I was broken, man. I was broken. I was hurt since day one. But at my wedding, there wasn't one person crying, man. Like there wasn't one. Like it was so much love. It was crazy, right? We'll get to that in a second. So the quail eggs, 5.5, 6 years old, right? We had no car. We had to take a bus to get to the main city where we would buy cookies, gum. Then I always talk about quail eggs, but it wasn't the first thing that I sold, right? It was gum, cookies, like cheese puffs and stuff that we had to go buy in bulk. And my dad came home in between, a few years where he got a truck, and that was an upgrade for us because I'm like, all right, great. We don't have to go in a bus anymore. At least we get to drive a truck, but then we still have to go door to door, right? My dad would never get out of the car. My dad would have us go. Another thing there, I remember my brother not stepping up to the plate, right? He would, and again, he's 3 years older than me. And again, it's just maybe who you are, your personality, your DNA. But I was like, oh, my brother's afraid. My brother is like looking at the situation going, what do I do? And then I was like, bro, I'll do it. Don't worry about it, right? I'll get it. So I would go and talk to the dispensaries, right? So in South America, for example, like I know a dispensary now, people will think like a place to go and buy like cannabis or whatever, right? But the simple terms of a dispensary is a place that dispenses goods. So where we lived, there was no HEB, there was no supermarket. You bought daily goods for daily consumption, right? And if you were late, good luck. This is why many times we didn't eat because my mom had to go to work. My dad wasn't home and we didn't have any money. We couldn't go to the place and be like, hey, I need 3 potatoes. I need half a liter of milk, right? We use liters, not like gallons. And, half a pound of like steak or something. You bought daily goods. There was no refrigeration, no washer, no dryer. My first time experiencing like hot water was in the US when I was 13 years old. I'll tell you a funny story. You're going to laugh about this, man. My first time walking into a Target in 2004. In South America, where we live, we had dispensaries by square, right? So you had squares where people lived, and each square, let's say of like 100 houses, you were actually distant to that corner dispensary. You were not very welcome to go across the street and buy from the other square because people would be like, dude, that's ours, right? So when COVID happened and people are freaking out about toilet paper, I was laughing. I remember literally my in-laws being terrified. I was like, bro, you haven't seen anything. I love them, but I was like, you haven't seen anything. I've been 3-4 days without food. You don't know struggle. Like you don't, if you think this is bad,
Yeah.
you can go to Costco, wait in
Right.
line, put a mask. But my entire existence up to that point was showing up late. Another reason why I love being early and I can't stand people being late to anything. My nutrition values were codependent on time management. You know what I mean? So early on, I learned, I'm like, dude, mom's not here. We can't show up. We are not eating. So that alone probably answers the questions. I'm like, dude, if it's going to happen, it's up to us.
Yeah.
If it's up to be, it's up to me, right? Being in that experience, going door to door at 5, 6, 7 years old, then graduating to quails, it's crazy because like once we went to an expo where they had animals, right? And I saw quails and I go, wait a minute. I learned that their nutrition value is like incredible, right? They're easier to manage than chicken. We had chickens too. Then I remember begging my mom. I'm like, Mom, please get them. Get them. I will sell quail eggs. My sister picked like something else at the expo. My brother picked something else. I was like, I need quails. Because immediately, I was like, how can I capitalize? By the way, we were dirt poor. I always had money.
Yeah.
I always had something, man. Under my, it was like a buck or anything. I was never without.
Yeah.
I would literally negotiate and selling my t-shirts at school for a pencil or something in return. I was always thinking like, what do I do to survive?
Percent.
And by the way, unfortunately, what do I do to get out of this family? What do I do to leave my mom? That was my thought at 5 years old.
Yeah.
Right. So I see my brother going like, hey, he's not doing it. I'm like, all right, I'll get this done. Right. You come with me, but I'll do the talking. I'll do the explanation and all of that. And my wife has, I told her I'm doing this podcast today. And she asked me, it's like, what's one of those first moments? And I was like, I remember just being in a situation where I had to step up. That's it. I just had to do. I won't watch something happen. I will do it. Sometimes it gets me in trouble because I say too much, right? But I'm like, I'm a doer, not a viewer,
Yeah.
right? And that's pretty much it.
And so that whole experience shaped your mentality, understanding that sales truly of what I believe is the greatest opportunity of all time.
Yeah.
And you took that opportunity, first got into car sales, and then from car sales you got into solar.
Yep.
And that's really where our relationship bonded.
Correct.
When
Yep.
it's an industry overall that primarily I would say is bleeding
Yeah.
due to lack of leadership, lack of checks and balances, systems operations, and really doing what you talk a lot about is the righteous, integrity driven thing to do.
Yes. Yeah.
And you see it all on the news now. You see Kim Paxton, I believe, is the AG, is now going after particular solar companies that we're both very familiar with because of the practices that they've introduced to homeowners, focusing on elderly, different things like that, and taking full autonomy advantage of these individuals. So what do you think about current day solar?
I love what's happening right now because actually I wrote to Alex Padilla, which was a Secretary of State at a point in California for like 6 years. And I wrote him essays, emails, letters. I never got an answer, but I remember vividly for like 6 years trying. I think he's Attorney General now. And if they find my letters out there, please put it out. That would be great, right? But I told him, I'm like, hey, there's a massive problem currently in the residential solar industry. And if we don't correct it, this is going to go bad, right? And that's where I found out like there are beautiful products out there all the time, everywhere. But you got to remember ethics and morals and your compass to do something right is what determines the outcome of how people view that product. So this started again early on. There's one thing that my family truly knows about me now is I will not negotiate myself with the devil. You know, like I believe in God and the devil present at all times. And we could sit in the table with them, but I'm never going to sell myself to the dark side for money, right? This is how we are actually now talking because, and, you know, maybe we get into that story. But early on, I remember my dad saying one thing that really stuck to me. And this is why I love my father, you know, and equally as like when I was 7 years old, I had a burning desire to kill him, you know, but I love who he is today because I'm a parent, I'm a husband, and I understand life is hard, man. You know, things are difficult and I don't know anything about his childhood. So who am I to judge him? You know, all I can do is love him, forgive him for what he did and have him be in my life, right? But I remember him saying a lot of cliches about life that you and I hear: value over money, quality over quantity. And two things that he said all the time when he was present was, if you're going to do something, be the best at it, right? I don't care if you shine shoes, your face better be synonymous with shining shoes. It better come up, right? And then at the same time, he said, if you and I both get caught, we both bleed red. He used to say this all the time. I was like, my dad's crazy. I don't know what that means, right? I'm just thinking physical. And all that meant was treat everybody with respect. No matter where they come from, who they are, what they have, what they don't have, treat everybody the same. Confusing for a child, right? It pays out in the future, right? So what's going on with solar today is exactly the fortunate manipulation of something good for profit. So I'll take you after car sales because I did car sales, and how I got into solar was actually crazy because, you know, I got really good at car sales very quickly, became a used car manager. Then I started buying cars for the dealership with Auto Trader. And this is when Periscope and Meerkat were coming up, right? Where before Facebook Live. And I love Grant Cardone. Everybody knew that. I would wear like his socks and all this stuff because I was like, dude, that guy understands sales is a way to design your life. And this is the beautiful part because I got made fun of so much, but even my closest peers all the time. But I was like, dude, I don't care, man. Like, if you think this is making fun of me, you should have been next to me when I was kneeling on my knees naked in the street of my dad's punishments as a child. So I go, you can't hurt me, bro. You can't, you think your words, you cannot hurt me. I've been physically hurt, emotionally hurt, right? Spiritually broken since I was born. You think you tell me that I like Grant Cardone is gonna do anything? It poured fuel into the fire, right? So I'm wearing his bracelets and this and that, but I got his attention. Like, and maybe I have the pictures and all this stuff, right? Of Gary V, like Grant Cardone saying, "Hey, thanks, Robert." And we're going back and forth on Twitter at the time, then Facebook Live. And then I got into a Facebook Live with Grant Cardone and him living in Miami at this point. And we started talking about sales and this and that. And through that, and taking action through that, somebody on that Facebook Live saw me, which is one of my best friends today, Sergio Bruna. I love this dude, you know? He brought me into this solar industry because of that Facebook Live of me talking about car sales in action with Grant Cardone, right? You know, long story short, he just reached out. He goes, "Hey, I saw you talking with Grant. Are you in LA?" Right? And I go, "Yeah, I am." Or like Thousand Oaks area, right? And he just came and visited me one day and offered me a job. And literally overnight, I quit what I was doing, which again, people thought I was crazy because I reached a pretty good, successful, steady income at like 21 years old, making six figures. I had my own apartment. I had 3 cars. Everyone again going like, "What is this guy doing?" Right? Which, by the way, I also made a lot of money mistakes, which is fine because I came from absolute nothing. And, you know, leaving that and then going into something else, which it's another thing I used from the people that I got surrounded by it, right? One of my soccer coaches always said, "Robert, there's everything in life has a beginning, a middle, and an end." And he goes, "You never know. This is just the life part, right? If your beginning is going to be short, the middle is going to be very long, the end is going to be very fast, and all types of combinations," right? And I was like, whoa. So then understanding, being self-aware, you know, having goals, having vision, you have to use all these things in your toolbox, right? I was like, car sales is done for me right now because this guy was selling solar. He lived a pretty good life. I admire him a lot. I said, "All right, what is it?" He talked to me and said, "This is what we're doing." I said, "I love this because I love selling cars, but it never gave me a satisfaction with between your soul, right? That you're actually doing something great for people." Now, granted, it's an amazing industry, but I never had that, like, oh, I'm doing something here for either the homeowners, saving the money, the planet, whatever it is, right? So I was like, all right, cool. We're done with car sales. I'm going into solar. And this has nothing to do with, you know, the guy who brought me in, which is Sergio, just the industry itself. I was like, oof, beautiful product. But I went into this company that he was working for at the time, and it took me 3-4 days to realize there's something wrong here, right? Because I always became a student, man. Like I'm sure you can tell my accent, but if I don't want to have one, like you're not gonna hear one. Only because when I moved to the U.S., I literally went inside a room and watched Hannah Montana, Corey in the House, you know, the Sweet Life, Zack and Cody, because people made fun of us, right? But I said, watch me. So in 6 months, I got out of ESL. It was actually faster than 6 months. 6 months was the semester. They couldn't move me out of there yet. But in about 4.5 months, I'm speaking fluent English, right? Which is my 4th language. So I was like, this is just not going to happen. Now, other people still have it, you know, they've been here like 40, 50 years. They have a strong accent. There's some people that don't even speak the language, right? That was never me, dude. I was like, if you want to be part of something, if you want to play a game, you got to understand the game. We're in America. Learn how to speak English. Learn the culture. This is not my country, right? This is something else. So I need to come in and be part of it and make it better and bring my value. So that, you know, with that, I realized that very quickly within 4 or 5 days of being in solar, I started getting down to how does this work? What's the purpose? And why do they need it for, right? Going back, because as soon as I sat down with homeowners, they thought solar was something new. And that was the biggest eye-opening for me already. I was like, what do you mean, right? They're like, oh, this is, at the time, what is it, 2-year-old technology, 5 years old? So then I started questioning, I started interviewing people, right? What do you think about this? Most homeowners probably watching today will tell you solar panels are 20 years old, 25, whatever, right? And I go, wow, you never thought about satellites in space. So I tell them, I'm like, pull up your phone. How do you think that technology works? So then I date October 4th, 1957, fact check, right? It's when the Soviet Union really got satellites in space first, but our satellite is rotating in space, date back to 1967. So that's like, what, 70 something years now, right? So how does this satellite work in space? You don't see a cable going up to space and orbiting, rotating, right? Obviously, centripetal force, you know, keeps it in rotation. But the technology, the communication aspect, the electromagnetic fields have to do with the technology of the photovoltaic cell, which is the solar panel. So it's not a new technology. How come people don't know about this, right? So that's what started. That was fascinating for me, is learning what people don't know and explaining it to them to the point where they literally stopped me, bro, in my presentation going, Robert, what do we do to qualify? And that's what set me apart. That's why I noticed I have a 92% closing ratio and 98.2% realization rate. No one canceled on me because as soon as I sat down with them, I educating them on what's actually happening, what the monopoly really is of the electric companies. And by the way, also telling them, hey, this is not for you. Solar is not for everybody. That was like one of my opening statements with people. And they're like, well, what do you mean? Everybody who's been through my door or knocked on my door, just puking solar over us, right? They're like, you go solar, you're going to cure cancer. That aspect, right? And I was like, whoa. That's not what this is. People are going solar because they want to save money and they want to put more money in their pocket, but it's deeper than that, right? So I always just went through the deeper point of legitimately telling somebody. I'll give an example. If I would sit down with, 9 out of 10 people and write on the opening statements, I would ask them, I'm like, what is your kilowatt hour consumption? How much energy do you use on a yearly basis? And they would go, I have no idea. And very quickly I would go, really? Well, you're about to sign 2 contracts, 2 different solar companies. You don't know what you use as far as kilowatt hour consumption goes? So then that I broke every single type of proposal because it was a logic fail. But they didn't know it was a logic fail because they didn't know what questions to ask. So for example, I said, so they're giving you, let's say, 20 panels. And they go, yeah, they gave me 20 panels and this is going to cover 100% of my energy needs. That's what they said. And I said, wait a minute. So let me have you answer yourself. 20 panels is going to cover 100% of your consumption, right? What's your consumption? I don't know. Then how do you know that's 100%? Right? And they would start laughing, bro. But again, because again, I'm a chess player. I love chess, learn how, since a kid. My brother's way better than me, by the way. But it was always thinking, dude. It just use your mind to think. So again, being a thinker allows you to bring the most value, actually learn what you're doing, and learning when to say no, right? Because again, money is not the goal here, but certain people obviously lead with that. So then that prevents them from actually becoming experts at anything.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so, like, that's fascinating, by the way. I love all that. In regards to solar, as people were talking, you were like aging it, understanding how old it is. And then you get this like prevalent time in the past like 5-6 years. You have a lot of individuals get into it for the hunger of wanting to make money, telling anything and everything in order to get the deal done, which is super sad. And I dealt with a lot of them. I mean, we root for so many different solar companies, and just in working with the rep, it just makes you kind of want to pull your hair out sometimes. Be like, man, this isn't authenticity. This isn't leading with value. There's no integrity here whatsoever. And it's a house of cards, and it's falling quick. But that doesn't mean that solar's over. And that's what excites me. You talk about ERCOT, you talk about, different areas where solar really is Encore. Yeah, it's Encore. That was it. I said it. See,
both of them, Encore and
okay.
ERCOT.
There we go. Boom, got it right. But you talk about that, and you were telling me really what's to come in Texas and what to look for, and why as a homeowner, if you are in specific areas, why this might be a financial means for you to save money. And as I'm even saying this right now, I'm thinking of friends that live there that we should probably call after this.
We should.
But
Give
what is, right? I'll just call and be like, hey, shut up. Stop what you're doing. Talk to this guy. What is the benefit? Like, let's start this. What is to come? And let's just only focus on this right now. What's to come in Texas? Why is it a means to want to know and understand the value of getting solar?
So supply and demand. Everybody's moving here, right? We hear data centers are going up and right. Abilene, right? Supply and demand. That's one. 2, simple terms. The sun is a nuclear reactor. It's not going to go away. So the sun not going away tells you this technology works and it will continue to work. Electric companies need, by the way, often they're not the supplier. I'm sorry, they're not the generator. They're only the supplier. So they get energy from their grids. They buy it for a wholesale price to store it at their grid. And with the cable and a main meter, they supply it to you. They're reselling that to you. Why would you do that when you can go straight to the source, right? We have a nuclear reactor who's never going to show up late to work. He's never going to call out sick, because if he does, it'll take 18 minutes for us to die. 18 minutes, it's not hitting planet Earth, we're done. So you won't have to worry about bills anyway, which is a funny thing to say, because it just says like, dude, this is the most consistent thing day and night. It's as simple as that. And we need energy. So where are you going to get it from? And one of the analogies I use all the time is you buy a house or you rent one. There's benefit to both, obviously, but one has more benefit, right? So if you buy your house, why are you renting energy? You bought your car, why are you renting energy? Leasing a car is not the best for certain write-offs and this and that. Yeah, sure. But then you have to redo it. So you need energy either way. Whether you get it from the electric company or you get it from your own source with a battery, and you save money long-term and immediately you get out of the monopoly, you produce on site, Why does it matter where it's coming from? But it does matter, right? So it's never going to go away. We need electricity. The sun is already out there. The technology is better than ever, and it's not really going to get much better, right? But it's a simple economic decision, almost like an IQ test. If you're a homeowner, you should own your energy. You shouldn't rent. You know, it's very simple.
Now, even being in that area, does every single homeowner qualify? Like, are there some that this does not make sense for?
No, there aren't. So see, this is where the ethics comes in. It's a very simple explanation, right? So, for example, you're a tall guy. You're taller than me. I fit in a Ferrari way more comfortable than you do,
Yeah, I get claustrophobic.
right?
I've tried it.
Yeah,
Not for me.
right. You'd rather have a big truck, right?
100%.
That works for you. Also, will you take your Ferrari to the snow? Probably not. You probably want a Jeep Grand Cherokee, right? Something that's, or a Wrangler, right? Something like that. You get what I'm saying? Not all roofs are created equal. And there may be some roofs that are not facing optimal position with the sun. And this is the biggest thing. Again, these are all my initial questions. So I don't want people to jump on and say, I want solar. I'll go, no, look at your situation first. And you can answer this yourself. Go to Google Maps, type in your address, and you can see right there, which is not biased, it's what it is, right? If you have an optimal roof for solar, and if your roof faces south, true south is perfect, southeast and southwest. If it's north, forget about it. Solar's not going to help you. That's number one, right? So you could be in an area where, yeah, it will be very beneficial for you to go solar, but it may not be the best, right? Bottom line is look at your roof situation first. And second, collect your data. Look at your consumption, because consumption is what's really going to determine if solar is beneficial at this time, or should you wait 5 years. And the reason why I say that is because this is also very simple to test and to prove. Energy prices are only going up, not going down. When have they gone down? Ever, right? In fact, I have a client now that I talked to him back in 2019 when my first daughter was born, and he was paying 12 cents per kilowatt on the Encore territory. Now he's at 22, right?
10%.
Bro,
10
I mean, 10 times. I mean, literally 100%, almost 100% increase.
Wow.
So I go, there you go. You would have been better by going solar back then. So they always have this cliche saying too, which is also true. Best time to go solar was 5 years ago, but the best time is now. But if you meet the criteria, and that's what I'm an expert at. I can help you determine the criteria, show it to you, and you will by yourself go, okay, this is a good thing. Yeah. But I'm excited about what's going on, man. Energy prices are only going up. Everyone's moving to Texas for good reasons, right? Everybody wants to be here. It's a great state. I love it. But that's supply and demand. More people come in, energy prices on everything's going to go up, right? And also the grid, it's already near peak capacity, right? You go back to 4 years ago when the winter storm happened, right? Okay, let's talk about that for a second. And I don't remember exactly the percentages, so somebody on the comments can correct us, right? However, I remember there was a lady on the news in San Antonio area. She made the news because she got a $1,600 bill, like $1,600, right? Okay. And she goes, how is this possible? I didn't use $1,600 worth of energy. And I go, bingo, this is perfect because it will illustrate how much of a monopoly it is, right? And how things actually work. So what ended up happening was that obviously things froze. And Texas did not have enough energy to supply to every homeowner. So we had to buy energy from Louisiana and Oklahoma. And the distance that traveled to get back to the grid and the storage, to the cable, to her house, to her city, her municipality, her main panel, and all the cables and every construction company that owns a construction post, everyone has to get paid. So that amount of energy costs $1,600. And finally, same amount of kilowatt hours, but it came from different places. Right? Now people are trying. If you look at that equation, you go, oh my God, now I get it. Texas doesn't provide 100% of its energy from here. We buy it from other places too. That's supply and demand, my friend. Prices of things go up depending on how far they have to travel. We saw this with COVID and in the trucking industry, oil, this and that. People complain about why is this going up? Or do you want to eat or you don't? Because there's too many layers here for you to understand to be very simple, right? If it has to come from a bunch of places, everyone has to get paid. And that's just what it is. So if you want to avoid that, look at, and if you are in the Encore territory, man, give us a call because almost all the time it's going to make sense.
So knowing that this is such an amazing opportunity, especially for knowing that prices are always going to continue to grow.
Yep.
Why is there a connotation that solar is a scam?
Because they done it wrong. They don't explain it right. I can tell you, like 9 out of 10 people that I met with were already had different proposals and they were already going to sign up with them and they never understood their own bills, right? Very quickly, there's a terminology out there, day one savings, right? So even the reps, I started interviewing. I trained for like thousands of reps, right? And when they would come from other sales organizations, I would have them pitch to me and they would bring up day one savings. And I go, day one savings to what? What was their average price of kilowatt and what was their average monthly payment? And they couldn't answer me, right? So then I said, how can those words come out of your mouth? You're saying day one savings, but you don't know what they spend. So therefore it's a logic fail and you have no idea what you're talking about. That was 99% of people, of reps, again, selling a beautiful product, but they themselves never understood, right? So you have a beautiful product that works. NASA uses it every single day. Military forces, solar panels date back to like the 87 year in the Mojave Desert in California with like Northrop Grumman, like, trust me, you have to look this up. It's not, again, like I said, it's not new technology. So if the government had it for that long, if NASA had it for that long, don't you think it would be beneficial for us? But who's oppressing that information too, right? Is the actual electric companies. They don't want you knowing that because you're a customer for life for them, right? Without thinking, you just send them money to keep your lights on.
So basically what I understand is like the message of overall solar, the correct message is phenomenal. It's just the messenger who's lately been looking at this as an opportunity to just lead with non-integrity to increase whatever it is that they can make. And you've seen this, like I have solar people like, what do you make in roofing? I'm like, well, we're focused on value. We have a quality product. You can make this. Like, wow, I made this much in solar. It's like, well, obviously because you were doing it wrong.
You were doing it wrong. You never did it to save people money because you never understood the equation. And then the delivery of the product was wrong, right? Like I said, number one, is solar good for everybody? No, I'll be the first one to tell you that. There are many things that you have to look at before making a decision. But second was the majority of, like I said, I could probably say 99% of reps out there, they did not know what they were doing. They were never, taught or anything, whatever. I see that as an excuse because if you represent an industry, you should know. The delivery of it was catastrophic, but it's a good thing because things always tend out to, the truth always comes out, right? This is like the spiritual and the faith and the moral compass. If you have it, you're going to be okay. So there's so much work to do. I'm excited because this is just, a lot of people are still right now saying it's dying, it's going away. It's not going away. It's not going to go away because there's always, just like Shell and Chevron and different places to buy gas from, there's always going to be another place where you can get energy from, your utility company or the sun. That's not going to go away. So I'm excited for what's coming, man, because it's going to surprise people because like we use a lot of energy here in Texas. People live in AC and heater and a lot of places are full electric, right? So it's going to be a good thing.
I love that. So if you were talking to somebody who's currently in solar and either they're struggling and whatnot, what would be the first step to really help them understand how to become that much better?
Well, number one, watch this podcast, fully. And if I said things that you never even thought about before, that should be a red flag.
100%.
Right? Go learn the history of it. Go learn how technology got started. And by the way, also really learn how to bring value and help a homeowner and when to say no.
So where can people connect with you in order to learn more?
Dude, they can follow us. They can follow our page. They can write us emails. They can come. They can show up to the office, do consultations with us. Dude, I'm open. That will be great because trust me, I can't put solar in every single house on their Encore territory. It will take me thousands of years.
Yeah, and that's what's so exciting. I mean, when opportunity meets preparation, and it's something that you've done for a long time, and that's hold my microphone. That's why I really like always just spending so much time with you because you and I have both passed on so many opportunities because it wasn't a right fit, not because we couldn't do it, we couldn't excel, but it was more so the integrity side of things of the people that wanted us to work with them, and it just wasn't a byproduct of who you and I truly are.
Yeah.
And so it's amazing as the stars have aligned and we've come together and realizing what we have and some of the opportunities that we're fulfilling together. It's just absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
And I know you work alongside Kevin. Kevin's such a baller. Yeah. I love Kevin so much. He's amazing. Incredible. But that's like the cool thing here. Like, that's why I love Cool Roofs is, I made a post today. There's so many roofers that are always sliding into the DMs of our roofing specialists. And I posted, I was like, we did like 200 and something $1,000 in sales yesterday.
Right.
And I'm like, stop asking what percentage our guys have. Stop asking how many deals we did. Cause the reality, the proof's in the pudding. Just ask us what we did yesterday. Yeah. And secondarily, like I said this, there's two types of people when it comes to leadership and business. There's people that use people to make money, but then there's people like us who use money to accelerate and make people throughout opportunity. We're not the same. And that's what I love about what we're doing here is I'm not messaging people. I'm not asking people to come work with us. I didn't ask you, Robert, let's go work. We've attracted one of another in our life, and we sat down and had an amazing conversation because you were doing very well at a specific opportunity. And you're like, yeah, let me just do this. We can work and find something. And then when I left that conversation, you called me and said, hey, I quit. We're going to go crush it together. I'm like, didn't expect that, but that was awesome. And so for people who are in the industry, I rather be a value add and help you do exactly what you're doing or start your own thing. But if you do see a fit coming and working with someone like Robert, someone like myself, and you want to absolutely crush it, the door's wide open. And we'd love to have you. And I think one of the big things, man, like how much do you think leadership matters within working and building and developing an overall company?
Again, goes back to when I was born, dude. Leadership or lack of leadership, right?
Yeah, it's a good question.
And I think now that we're getting older, it's even easier. Like, let's pretend you have the dates today. You meet the person, you don't have to play 21 questions anymore, right? Because you know things in life. So you can speed that up. Like, I forget who says this, but it says life is short, but the art of living is long or can be long, right? And that is in your leadership and simply looking at mentors or people and say, would I spend 5 seconds stuck in an elevator with this person or 5 hours, right? Wow. You know what I mean? And it's a simple question. Ask yourself, do you see them in you or you in them and what they're doing, where they're going? Like, it's very easy, man. Like, tell me your plans for the future. And I'll tell you if I want to be with you immediately.
No.
So you told me your plans. I was like, dude, there's nothing to wait here. This, again, respecting, loving what I was doing before, but being able to say, this is done. Thank you for what you gave me up to this point. I'm going somewhere else, right? And by the way, you touched on something very important. Man, I left millions of dollars on the table on other solar contracts and companies and this and that because, again, I was like, no, it's not aligned with who I am or what I want to do, it's crazy because at times, man, I went through rough times, and not taking that money to put my family or my wife in a better situation, knowing it would hurt for a while, but knowing where we're heading. And this is why I love my wife more than anything, is because she understood that. And she said, you're right. You're doing the right thing ethically, morally. And I know that's more important to you than having a few bucks in our bank account, right? Because our daughters are watching. My daughters are watching, And that's all that matters to me is the day I die, I want them to say who died. Like, you know what I mean?
And I love that. And I think to end the podcast here in a second, I just want to say this so I can look back on this podcast. There's something that you and Kevin and I are working on that is just absolutely disgusting.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. And it's going to impact so many people and generate so much revenue and create an immense amount of opportunity for all of us. But it's something we've been working on for a long time and attracted an individual like yourself to help move that needle forward. And it's just about to be absolutely insane. So shout out to that dude. Because when I look back on this, I'll be probably watching it maybe on a beach, smoking a cigar. I don't know.
We're doing that.
Yeah, which we love to do.
Or Monaco. We're going to Monaco, man.
We're
The
going to
Formula
Monaco.
One race.
We talked about that on a yacht,
exactly.
baby. Not rented, bought. No, I'm kidding. We always rent. If it flies, that's saying rent it. But to end it, what's some advice? Like some of the best advice you've ever gotten within sales? If someone's watching this today, shout out to Clifford in the Philippines, our clip team. If they can clip this and really make just some sick, educational, value-driven content about you that we're just going to let unleash on the world, that just even if just one person, like the starfish effect, if it's one person that sees that and it gets them off their ass to go just experience what creativity and greatness is, what are a few things that you throw at them?
Number one is become a master at it. Grab a recorder and record yourself and pitch it to yourself. And if at the end of that, you can't buy your own product, you have no idea what you're doing. It's very simple, man. Because the technicality has been taken care of. There's somebody smarter than me that created a solar panel, but there's nobody better than me at delivering it for the people. You know what I mean? So if you have that effect, like your prospect stop you in your presentation. I'm going to end with this. If your prospect stops you in the presentation and says, I seen enough cold, what do I do to qualify? Then at that point, you've done your job.
Wow.
If you have to ask for the sale, you're not a professional, you're not a master, and you have not earned the right to be a master in it.
Jeez, cooking in the kitchen. And I want to add one last thing because I learned something last night. Of course, you know me, I'm doing 75 hard right now and it's kicking my butt, but it's absolutely incredible. And one thing I already do is read. And of course, I'm reading right now The Law of Success by Napoleon Hill. If you haven't read it, it's a fantastic book. Basically, Napoleon Hill teamed up with Andrew Carnegie, asked Andrew Carnegie, how is it that I can be successful? He said, if you want to, you can interview 500 individual friends of mine, from Thomas Edison, him himself, Henry Ford, the great people of the 1925s when the book came out. So right before the peak of industrialism. And it's fascinating what you learn. But there was one thing out of it that I loved it. And by the way, they took the law of success, compressed it into Think and Grow Rich, which a lot of people know more about that because the law of success is like this big and Think and Grow Rich is like this big. But it's still a phenomenal book. And one thing that I learned from it is the ability to develop the habit of self-confidence and the ability to have it in your mind and having a strong mind and understanding the vision of who it is that you want to become and the things that you want to create. And the one thing I loved about this is as Napoleon Hill was walking, he put this in the book, he was walking up to his office and there was a guy sitting there who had a lot of loss. He put a lot of money into a factory, his whole life fortune. The World War I believe it was, started. Therefore, the factory failed because they couldn't get the products and goods in order to succeed. And so times turn, this individual lost everything. He lost his belief, he lost his self-confidence, he lost his family, he lost his children. And he said he heard an article that Napoleon Hill put out there about the power of being self-confidence and how he could help. So he ran up to Napoleon Hill, and I just love the story so much. He ran to Napoleon Hill. He's like, you were the individual that wrote the article. I think you can change my life. And he said, well, let me hear about your story. And what I just told you is exactly what the guy said. And Napoleon Hill said this. He said, I apologize. I'm not the man that can help you. And the guy was disbelief, just looked at the ground, and that was it. He said he looked as pale as the way he'll look in the coffin when they lay him to rest. I thought that was a powerful statement. He said, but I do know a guy. And the guy goes, for God's sakes, please introduce me to this guy. And he said, follow me. And Napoleon Hill walked him up and he opened a curtain and there was a mirror there. And he was looking right at himself. And he said, that's the guy who has the power to change his life and build the self-belief to make things happen. And the dude wouldn't have been successful. So it's like the little things in life that we overcomplicate, knowing that we're looking for this podcast with Robert to change our life, or this next thing in a book to change your life, or a sentence or a quote or something to find that motivation. With reality, you just have to look yourself in the freaking mirror and say, you know what, I'm going to make the impact in my life and change it, because if it's up to me, so it will be, and I'll get out there and do it in order to succeed. So to end this podcast, dude, I freaking love you. What we're doing is incredible. The things that we're building is absolutely amazing. I'm fired up. I don't know what's up with this saps, but I feel a little shaky. But anyways, drink saps are responsibly brought to you by Cool Roost, Cool Solo. We're absolutely crushing it. Robert, love you, man.
I love you too, brother.
Let's have a good one.
Let's go. Thank you.
Law of Success, Napoleon Hill. Come on, we're out.